Hi guys, I'm back today with another palette video, which I'm totally cool with. Like, I'm living my palette dreams right now. But at least this time, I got to live my palette dreams on a budget, which is super awesome, because today we're going to talk about the Alter Ego Artemis palette, which, number one, I like the name Artemis. I like Greek mythology. I think all that kind of stuff is pretty cool. So for me, I was like, yeah, I'm digging it. I like the packaging. I love the green kind of, this reminds me very much, I don't have it out anymore, but it reminds me of the ColourPop palettes that I just did reviews on. Like, it's still got that little sheen and the embossing, and it's really cool. It's very similar to, like, their Goddess and their Aurora, because they have, like, that same type of deal going on. I dig it. I don't care that it's the same in just different colors. That does not bother me. I'm still here for it. So this is what the inside looks like, and I'm just going to say this and be upfront to begin with. I actually like this better than the Natasha Denona, like, layout. I like having the actual names just where I can see them instead of on a sheet. That's really annoying to me. It really bugs me. That's just a personal irksome thing. I get why she does it so you can switch your pans around, but I don't care. I don't need to switch them around. I bought this palette for a reason. I left it the way it is. In any case, I like this. I think that it's just really easy. You can see what you're using. You can see what you're looking at. I somehow just got black all over my hand. What just happened? Okay. Not cool, bro. All right. I digress. Anyway, that's what the inside looks like. I'm going to swatch compare both this to the Metropolis palette so you can see what they look like swatched out. I will have a look for you guys after that. I'm doing the finger pointing gun, which is really creepy. And my husband's also going to tell you in a few seconds which side he thinks is which. And I will just say this. My husband is kind of like Rain Man of makeup. That's like maybe a really, really old reference for anybody that's not of a certain age. So sorry, I've probably lost anyone that is like 25 and under. Maybe even less, like maybe even like 29 and under. Oh my gosh, I'm aging myself. Okay, so I have brought my husband in here because I want him to tell me which eye he thinks is which. So, which eye is the Natasha Denona and which eye is the Artemis palette? Now, I will say this. My husband has been 2 for 2 so far.
I'm going to say this eye is Natasha Denona.
That is Natasha Denona. He has gotten it right 3 times out of 3. So, I don't know if that is really just saying something for Natasha Denona's quality, or if, in fact, he just has an eagle eye, which he might. Thank you, husband. I don't know why I looked in the camera to look at you. Thank you. I love you.
Love you.
Let's all hope he feels better. Poor husband. Anyway, I'm going to swatch these for you guys. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go row by row. And I'm going to start like with the Artemis palette. And then I'm going to go to Natasha Denona. Now, the Natasha Denona is going to be really hard because these are not in the exact same order. But I'm going to do my very best. I feel like cream, but I guess it could be. It kind of feels... No, I can't tell. I think it might be a cream to powder formulation. But I'm honestly having a hard time telling. So that is the color Hunt. The corresponding shade in the Metropolis palette is going to be Rezone. I'm pretty sure these are both powders. Ooh. Okay, that is very close, you guys. Personally, in my opinion, they seem very similar. I mean, Hunt might just be slightly lighter, but, I mean, you could just make this a little bit lighter or more blended out and you'd never know the difference. So those are those two. The next one is Provoke in the Artemis palette. Ooh, this is so soft. Ooh, this actually reminds me of the Natasha Denona formulation in the texture. Oh, wow. And I did not get a chance to use this color today, and now I'm kind of really sad that I didn't. There is that beautiful shine to it. Color that it matches is going to be Blaze. And this looks extremely close, you guys. Holy cow. Wow. I would say they did an extremely good job of duping that. The next color is Entice in the Artemis palette. Kind of just a lovely tan shade. There's that. The shade is Rope. So a little bit different, but I think if you apply, they're still pretty darn close. Okay, Entice is just slightly lighter, so you could just go a little bit less heavy-handed on Rope, and I think that you have a winner chicken dinner. The next shade is called Obscure. And it's kind of, it looks different in the pan than it does applied. So this for me looks like a champagne-y with pink. Really gorgeous. I have that in my inner eye today. And the Metropolis palette is Queen. Those look the exact same to me. Wow. I mean, they feel almost the exact same to me as well. Next shade is Ravage. And I definitely feel like I've seen a similar shade in the Sunset palette from Natasha Denona. It's kind of like a very orange with a slight pink shiny shade to it. And I think that the color that corresponds is Helena, which does look, well, let's try and deepen it a little bit. Still very similar. Has that little bit of pink sheen to it. The next color in the Artemis palette is Catch. That is so pretty. Oh my gosh. They do a very good job of dupes, in my opinion. And I think the corresponding shade is Penny. Again, extremely similar. Like, as you move it around, it just looks very, very close. The last shade in the first row of the Artemis palette is Trap. And I think this might be a cream to powder formula. I also think I need to do a better swatch. So another kind of orangey shade. So I think that if you picked up more of the color Trap from the Artemis palette, it could be deep, just like the color Chrism from the Metropolis palette. And I think that if you sheared out Chrism, it would look more like Trap. But that is all the first row compared. Moving into the second row, the first shade is Silent, which I think is one of the cream to powders. And that is the Artemis palette. It's definitely harder to dig out. It picked up pretty well on my brush, actually. But I can't seem to build it up much more than that on my finger. The corresponding shade is Lethal in the Natasha Denona palette. Ooh, much easier to pick up on my finger, in my opinion. And sheared out would be much closer. That's why I tried to kind of like shear it out a little bit. Now, I think that Lethal has a slightly more yellow undertone than the actual Silent shade. Shade is Scent. Gorgeous, shifty shade. And then the corresponding shade is probably one of my absolute favorite, and this is Orium. I am trying to kind of shear it out a little bit, because I do think that the more sheer it is, the more similar they are. But Orium has like a slightly deeper base, but the glitter particles within are identical. Okay, the next shade is Camouflage. Beautiful coppery shade. Like, boom. And the corresponding shade is Fuse. Ooh. Which actually didn't pull as easily. The next one is Victory. Which is just a metallic blue. The corresponding shade is Aqueous. This color reminds me very much of the blue shade that Charlotte Tilbury did in her palette recently. I did not buy that palette, but that's what it reminds me of. It may not be the same at all, but from a distance, from never swatching it, that's what it totally just gave me vibes of. The next shade is Stalk. Kind of like a rose gold color. Well, kind of like a rose bronze color, actually. Shade is Crest. The color is very, very similar. I might actually like the Artemis one better in this case again. This one is another cream to powder. This is the shade Quiver. Kind of like a slightly rose-toned tan brown. I think this is the shade and it would be Pure. Ooh, that is way different. I am pretty sure that's the right shades to match up though. But they definitely are different. This is more rosy undertoned. The last shade in this row is Snare. And we're comparing it to Ripe. And they're both kind of red-orange shades. Very similar. More similar on the eye than off. But that is all of that row. So, the first shade here is Thrill. And I will say this, I could not get, I had to, wash my arm a few times and I still couldn't get it all off. So this is Thrill. Kind of like a gray, green, brown. A very swampy color, if you will. Now, I don't think there's an actual match to this shade. There is a shade that looks similar to this, but it also looks similar to another one that's a shade down. And that would be the shade Troop, but to me this looks more like the next one. There's that. So, not the same. But I can't figure out if they just duplicated something somehow, but we're just going to do that for now. Then we have Spear, which I used today. Probably one of the nicest gold shades I have ever used. Very vibrant. The corresponding shade is Imperia. Which looks very similar, but I think I like better than the Alter Ego one. It is called Chase. This is kind of a taupey metallic color. Corresponding shade is Noble. Which spread out is more similar, but it may be slightly deeper. Both very pretty colors. Shade is Pursuit. Gorgeous teal shade. Shade is Jubilee. Slightly more black based, I think. However, if you shear it out, very, very similar. I don't know which I like better. First response is to say the Artemis one, but the depth of the Natasha Denona one is great too. Is Captivate. believe that's another cream to powder. And the corresponding is stain. I definitely think sheared out they would be more similar. Pluck. Beautiful. Beautiful shade. Reminds me very much of Grandstand from Makeup Geek. It is Mace. That might be another that I like the Artemis better. Oh. And that is like, it's blue, but it reminds me of cerulean a little bit. Like in the pan, it's very navy blue, but worked out, it is cerulean. That used to be my favorite crayon, which is the only reason I say it like that. Shade is Symbol. Which I think if it was sheared out would look very similar to that. However, it stays more opaque than the one in Artemis. So there is all of that row. First color in the last row is Ambush, which to me looks extremely similar to Bow. Try and deepen that up a little bit. That's one of those cream to powder shades. Definitely like those better in the Natasha Denona formulation. And I have retraction. I totally did the wrong shade for Bow and the wrong shade for Ambush. I will do the shade Enigma, which should have gone with Bow before Ambush. And then I will do Symbol, which should have gone with Ambush. Those shades are very similar, but you can see the difference. Next shade is Prowl, which again reminds me very much of the shade Thrill. Slightly more green, definitely just not as good of a shade as the Natasha Denona. Time is Troop, because I think sheared out it is much more similar to that. Stealth in the Artemis palette. It's kind of streaky. It coordinates is Royal. There's Pounce. A gorgeous golden copper shade. And then Natasha Denona is Rust. They are just slightly different undertones. This is more red undertone, this is more orange. They still look very similar. Lure. And that's kind of a pink undertone brown. Antique. Sheared out, they would be much more similar. However, again, the Natasha Denona cream to powders are much more opaque and easy to use. It is Conquer. Beautiful metallic cranberry color. Natasha Denona is Claret. That's beautiful. They're both beautiful. It's Quest. Greeny, goldy brown shade. It is Shield. I guess would be the similar shade to Thrill is Azoic. But to me, it's just too tan to be a match. So take that as you will. But that's in the Natasha Denona palette. Okay, so I typically don't talk through my eye tutorials anymore, but since we are doing a comparison, we shall do that. I am going to start with my very favorite fluffy brush, which is the Wingoss 3. And I'm going to go into both of the palettes. I will wipe off my brush between each application. That way you guys can see what it looks like on each side. Let's see here. This side is going to be the Alter Ego, and this side is going to be the Natasha Denona. So, I'm going to try and keep everything as similar as possible. I'm going to start with the shade Entice and Artemis, which I love the name of, to be real honest with you. And I'm just going to put that all over. I'm going to tuck back some of my hair here. I'm going to put that all over my upper crease. Although I also tend to, you guys are going to see me playing a lot of cleanup because I make messes over here. And in fact, just ignore it until the very end because it's going to be like a mess. I can't wait to swatch these because I can't really tell as I'm applying them if they're the powder formulation or the cream to powder. But this one feels like just powder, but I could be wrong because I'm not touching it. It's driving me nuts. Rope. It's rope. Rope. I'm so excited. I actually love the Metropolis palette and I wish I used it like every day. I could literally use it every day. I could. I love green palettes. I mean, not that it's completely green. It's definitely got some oranges and cranberry tones and blues and stuff as well. But in my heart, in my soul, it feels green. Okay. And I'm just putting that all over, same area. So far, I'll say this. I feel like and I usually feel the opposite when I do these. This may be a case where you prefer not to use a base, especially with the creams, because I kind of feel like they might stick doubly. That's just how I feel about it. Okay, so the next color I'm going to use in Artemis is Hunt. Slightly more orange, but very cantaloupe. You guys are probably going to go, what kind of cantaloupe are you eating, chick? But that's alright. Just putting that all over as well. And then I will in fact take just a little bit on the tip of my brush and go underneath as well. A little bit more ski. And the shade that is similar is Rhizome. I have no idea if I've pronounced that right. Natasha Denona, I love you, but man, making me feel really illiterate. Okay, just doing the same thing. Taking that all over. Now, I do kind of feel like on the Natasha Denona side, when I've built up, I'm starting to get like this ridge here of color that I need to work on blending out. But I feel like a lot of Natasha Denona shadows do that, where they create like a hard line. That even if you attempt to blend out, they kind of still stay. I mean, it's not awful. Okay, then I will take just a hint of that underneath. My poor husband is sick, and so he's got to go to work in a couple hours, but he is having a hard time breathing, so he may pop in here. I might have to do 2 looks with this because there's so many shades, and I feel like if I don't try them all, it's not going to be a complete review. That's just my thoughts. However, I still wanted to get this up for you guys, so it is what it is. I'm going to take a smaller brush, and I'm going to go into the color, I'm going to get a smaller brush, and I'm going to go into the color Snare on the Artemis side. It's a very true kind of orange color. I'm going to tuck that right directly into my crease. You okay, love? I just put a little bit under there too. Okay, so in the Natasha Denona palette, the color is called Ripe. Oh, look, something easy I can pronounce. And I'm just going to pick it up the same way, just lightly, kind of on the tip, and go into the crease. kind of blow out. And put in like that. So far, I've got to say, like, on the eyes, I think they look very similar. And that is the joy of dupe palettes. So much fun. I was like, as soon as it got here, I was like, I made like tracks out to my mailbox. Okay, that was the creepiest sound I've ever made. Let's strike that from the record, guys. I'm probably going to grunge this up a bit. I'm going to use some of the greens. Hopefully I won't make this too muddy. I should have probably just done just a green look, not with the orange, but I think orange and green look pretty together. They make me happy. So I'm going to take the color Silent from the Artemis palette. Same brush. And it's not picking out the easiest on this right this second. Okay, there we go. And I'm going to kind of put it directly, I mean, it's still in the crease, but I'm trying to go slightly lower than the color Snare. Just trying to ripen up that area with some green. Oh, I love you, green. So stinking much, it's not funny. Bless you. My poor husband's been on like a sneezing jag like all day. Bless you. His allergies are really terrible. And he has to work third shift, which is awful. Okay. The green that is in the Metropolis is called Lethal. And I just picked up a fair amount. Just putting this on, same way. I'm gonna put a little bit in my outer V as well. This definitely looks more spring green. This looks more yellowy green. Hopefully that makes sense. This definitely, the Natasha Denona one has a bit of yellow to it as well, but this one is definitely, they're different. I think maybe if you blended this out a lot, it could look more similar to this, because this is not as dark as it is in the pan. However, it to me is very different than the one in the Artemis palette. I'm going to go back into Silent in the Artemis palette and just kind of try and work that a little bit more. So there are those two. The next color that I'm going to pick up, I think I'm going to do a mix of Stealth and Prowl in the Artemis palette. And I'm going to get a different brush. That's not the brush I want. Get this. No, I'm not going to get this brush yet. There's the brush I want. I'm going to do a mix of Prowl and Growl. I'm going to do a mix of Stealth and Prowl. And I'm going to start with the Prowl, which is almost like a gray-green, and Stealth, which is like a, I don't know, kind of tealish green. I'm just going to tuck it right over here into my outer V. And now I've got some under here. Unfortunately, I cannot put on any eyeshadow and not get it underneath my eye. I do not have that ability. I'm going to try and pinch at the tip here and kind of make it like a purposeful thing. I'm not crazy about that. I'm going to blow it out in a second. Let's just pretend it doesn't look like, you know, we can't pretend. Can't pretend forever, right, my friends? Hang on. I'm going to go back in with the brush that I just used. I'm actually going to pick up a little bit more Hunt and just try and blend that out a little bit better. I'm also going to do the same with the top. We're going to do Troop and we're going to do Royal together, and then I will go back and add a little bit of Thrill to this side. That way it's more the same, hopefully. Definitely seem like at least one of them is the cream to matte formulation. Okay. there's that. Pinch this up. Do the same thing there. I definitely feel that this is more deep. However, the color Dupe is deeper than the color Prowl in the Artemis palette, so that could very well be why. I'm going to do one more round in the Artemis palette using the same colors, but with Thrill instead of the other one. I'm going to go back to this. This eye is like way more blown out than this one. Just use it. Alright. So that's really pretty. However, I am terrible at blending this apparently. I'm going to have to work very hard to fix this eye because it looks really patchy. Like, this eye is always my bad eye, this eye is always my good eye. It just kind of is what it is. I swear, this sounds really weird, but I really feel like the e.l.f. Fluffy Eye Blending Brush, or Fluffy Eye Blender Brush, is kind of like an eraser. If I want to soften something, or maybe make something disappear a little bit, I like to use this brush. This is almost more blue toned. They're very, very similar. They are very similar. This is just more green, true green toned. I'm going to go back into Hunt from the Artemis palette, and I'm going to try and kind of blend this a little bit more. Okay, I'm going to take a little bit under as well. There's that. Much, much better in my opinion. Resume. Okay. I am going to attempt to salvage my eyes. I'm gonna attempt. No. Kind of. I'm gonna try something else here. I'm gonna pick up the color Quest in the Artemis palette. This is a shimmery shade, which hopefully you guys can see. And I'm almost making it a more gold green. But because of the deeper tones and the other shadows, it's darker in my opinion, maybe. That or I'm just feeding myself lines to make myself feel better. Okay, there's that. It's not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. That is one eye. It is something. Shield. Okay. This is a very bold look. I'm going to use the color Spear in the Artemis palette. Guys, be careful what you use to pick it up, because I just made a huge mess in my pan. Ooh. She gold. She gold. She gold. And I'm just going to dab, dab, dab as well. I swipe and dab. I'll put some under my eye as well. I wish it were sticking slightly better. But it is a really pigmented gold. I'm just kind of trying to blend all of that together. It's something right now. The next shade that matches is Imperia. Oh, it does the same thing. So that's interesting. Just poofed out in the pan. Ooh, okay. This to me is much, much more like Boom Pow Gold immediately. I don't know if you guys can tell that, but it really was very bright and pigmented immediately. Next color that I want to use, the next and probably last color that I want to use is Scent in Artemis. And I'm going to try and, okay, this is poofing out too. Put it on the center of the lid. Because this is actually one of my favorite shades in the Metropolis palette. So I was very interested to see how this one would perform in the Artemis. The corresponding shade in the Metropolis palette is Orium. Oh yeah. This is me being me here. I kind of feel like I like the Natasha Denona version better. However, I do feel like it almost made it slightly darker than the one in the Artemis palette. So my gold is definitely less gold now. That's just my opinion. We're going to use the color Obscure in the Artemis palette in my inner corner. And then I'm going to put the shade Queen into my inner corner on the Natasha Denona side. So that is both of the eyes. I'm going to clearly clean up all that I've got going on here because it is an unholy mess. It looks kind of horrifying. Okay, so I have my eyeliner on, I have my mascara on, and can't we all agree that it made a huge difference in how this look has turned out? Because when I originally stopped doing my eyes, I was kind of like, these sure got away from me, and they did. Now, I did clean up underneath because I had it everywhere. If it were up to me, I would just cover my whole face and then just wipe off the excess. But I did go back, I did tape off the excess, and then I put some more of my foundation just underneath again, and then I lined it. This is probably one of the longest and heaviest lines that I've done in a really long time, and I tried to put on some extra mascara, and I put on a little bit of Wayne Goss's eyeliner right on my waterline. So this is the final look. Now, here are some thoughts that I have. I have not swatched these yet, so you have to watch the beginning to see that, but I would say the colors are very, very similar, and if you do not have the money, and I don't blame you because Natasha Denona's palettes are crazy expensive, then I would certainly say pick up the Artemis palette. It's $22. And then, if you have a coupon code, I use Porcelain's coupon code, which I will leave below so you guys can check her out. I will leave her channel and then leave her coupon code, which is just Porcelain. I'm sure she gets some kind of benefit for that or whatever. But I like her. I think she's kind of funny, and I feel like we would be friends in real life. I don't know. She just gives me that vibe. But in any case, so I used her code, and I spent even less. So it ended up being really cheap. I actually picked up 2 palettes. I picked up the Aurora as well because I have the corresponding Natasha Denona palette to go with that. So I figured maybe I'll do these as a dupe video as well in the future. Not today. But I really like it. I think, you know, Natasha Denona is great. And if you have the extra money to spend on a palette, go out, do it. You won't be disappointed with the Metropolis. Even the cream to powder shades from her and that palette were really, really good. So there is that. However, if you are like, you know, me, which it seems like I buy a lot of makeup, but I also sell a lot of the makeup that I buy and try out. My husband's outside walking and I waved at him. So it's kind of like a perpetual in and out type of situation. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't have like the Natasha Denona one. And in fact, I think I did the Beautylish. Yeah, I did. I did the Beautylish bag or whatever they did at like the Christmas time or New Year or something like that. And I actually ended up getting this in mine. So that's kind of the story there. Otherwise, no, I probably would have still bought it because it's green. To me, it's a very green palette, and that speaks to my soul. In any case, I think that $129 is a crap ton of money to pay for a palette. Now, I will say this. You could pay $125 for a Pat McGrath palette, which has 10 shades. which I've done, obviously, because I love Pat McGrath. Or you, right here, you get, I mean, how many we got here? 28? You get 28 different colors, and you pay $129. So if you do the math on it, that's actually not that bad. And personally, I like the smaller pans because here's real life. Nobody's ever going to go through the big pans that are in her other, like, $129 palettes, like the Biba or the gold palette or any of those. So that's just me being honest. I will say this. You could probably get a very similar look with the gold palette. So if you don't have the gold palette already, pick this up instead, because you could, like, not cover it like I did and get an extremely similar look. Actually, you know, I've said this, and I'm terrible. I'm the type of person, I'm like, the gold palette is so good. But we're not talking about Natasha Denona, just in like side conversation about her. I've actually done a video on this as well. This is my Goddess palette from Alter Ego, and for me, this is just as good. Slightly different formulation, but just as good as the gold palette from Natasha Denona. So if you want to live your Natasha Denona fantasy, pick up these two specifically for like your blue, green, gold, grungy, amazing fantasy. Looking for more of a fall, like autumn, summery, just wonderful sunset type of vibe. I really like this one. I haven't tried it, but I would assume the quality is the exact same as the rest of Alter Ego's palettes because I've not been let down by any of them. And that's the Aurora palette. So maybe check that one out, which I will be doing a video on in the near future. But for me, the value of Alter Ego's palettes is so good, and you truly still get to have the experience of the color story. Now, they don't look the exact same, but they are extremely, extremely close, and I don't feel like you would be disappointed having this over this, personally. That's just my thoughts. Now, I know some people would feel differently, but I seriously think that if you're on a budget, that is the way to go. Go pick it up right now, and the shipping was super fast. Like, it's already here. Thank you for arriving so quickly. We appreciate you. Anyway, if you guys like this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up, leave a comment down below, and subscribe and ring the bell. Wow, that's a lot of steps. Whatever, just pick one of those. I don't even care. But subscribing, if you would do anything, just subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.